Hi guys, we are Kim Jong-un's campaign team. We strongly urge you to vote for Kim Jong-un as your new prince because he truly follows Machiavellian leadership. Follow us on Instagram at JongTeam for more. Who is Kim Jong-un? Kim Jong-un is a North Korean politician who has been the supreme leader of North Korea since 2011. Youngest of Kim Jong-il's 3 sons, Kim lived most of his life out of the public eye. As a young adult, he began accompanying his father on military inspections, and when his father died in December 2011, Kim Jong-un was declared the country's supreme leader, signaling his position as the head of North Korea's government and military. Kim's rule his country is a totalitarian dictatorship. However, Kim is a rational, cunning, and patient Machiavellist who intentionally uses fear to sustain his country's existence and gain advantage among the international community. He directly follows the basic tenet of Machiavelli's The Prince. Any leader that wishes to remain in power for the longest period should use fear in vast quantities. The result is a world community that is mostly paralyzed and unable to take direct action.
The masses he rules all love him. He sure does have a way with words, doesn't he? In these matters, most men judge more by their eyes than by their hands. For everyone is capable of seeing you, but few can touch you. Everyone can see what you appear to be, whereas few have direct experience of what you really are, and those few will not dare to challenge the popular view, sustained as it is by the majesty of the ruler's position. Machiavelli, The Prince, Chapter 18.
This quote Sophia just described truly reflects how the deception of the masses can empower a ruler. With the masses believing a certain truth, a dissenter will have a hard time getting their perspective across without major risk. They will be fighting not only the wrath of the masses, but also major punishments given for dissenting against a glorious leader. In the case of Kim Jong-un, he persuades everyone through his charisma and strong leadership, depicted in various propaganda and iconography glorifying himself. The population of North Korea is constantly reminded of his empowering presence, to the point where they get sick of it. As people judge the worthiness of a leader based on what they see of him, and not what of him, many will support Kim Jong-un based on their knowledge of his accomplishments depicted through icons.
Furthermore, one of his most glorifying depictions was him acting as a savior against the evil clutches of the United States. As the United States is depicted to the North Korean population as a prominent evil in the world, having Kim Jong-un depicted as a guardian fighting against such evil will make the masses safe and relieved. Kim Jong-un has the masses' full support in the palm of his hand. There is no doubt he will successfully rule without too much dissent troubling him.
Kim Jong-un is feared by other nations. He is in fact scary. It is much safer to be feared than loved, when only one is possible. The reason for this is that in general men are ungrateful, inconstant, false, cowardly, and greedy. As long as you succeed, they are yours entirely. They will offer you their blood, property, life, and children when the need is far distant. But when the need approaches, they turn against you.
The quote that Ari said reflects that Kim not only uses fear to influence North Koreans, he also intentionally uses it to sustain his power and gain advantage within the international community. Kim deliberately intimidates other nations by seeming as if he is not afraid to nuke another nation at a moment's notice in order to maintain long-term intimidation.
For instance, North Korea is known for its frequent testing of missiles, despite the international community's several sanctions and warnings. It is necessary for him to intimidate other nations and be feared because it is essential for him to maintain control of his power and North Korea. This method is known as saber rattling, and in using it, Kim Jong-un is able to remind other nations of his power while not giving other nations the chance to strike back. Machiavelli specifically advises that the leaders who desire to remain powerful for a long period of time should prefer to use fear over kindness. No country wants to take a chance with North Korea when there is a clever dictator who uses hysteria and fear.
Kim Jong-un is both strong yet cunning, like a lion and a fox. Since a ruler, then, must know how to act like a beast, he should imitate both the fox and the lion, for the lion is liable to be trapped, whereas the fox cannot ward off wolves. One needs, then, to be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten away wolves.
In this quote that Paolo said, Machiavelli argues that a prince should have the qualities of a lion and a fox. The strength of the lion can be used to scare off wolves, while foxes are cunning and can be used to recognize traps. Kim Jong-un has truly utilized this principle. He has deceived the world into believing he is a madman, World leaders, military chiefs, and Hollywood have all painted Kim Jong-un as a maniac. Every leader, every organization live in fear of what Kim Jong-un might do next. No country wants to take any chance with North Korea because of his consequences. A missile or nuclear strike into a major area is not worth any possible reward. Machiavelli argues that a prince should act like a lion. Kim Jong-un wholly embodies this argument. As a lion, Kim Jong-un is able to scare off the wolves, the other nations. Underneath this madman mask that Kim Jong-un puts on, he is very cunning and shrewd, embodying the fox.
Kim Jong-un uses hysteria and fear to get people to do what he wants. The scenario is similar to a madman with a loaded gun who screams and fires shots threatening to cause mayhem if his demands are not met. Any rational person that found themselves in this situation would do what the psychopath asks of them because the risk is too high and the reward not great enough. It turns out that Kim Jong-un is far from the idiot that he portrays himself to be. He is actually a clever player that uses nuclear missiles to preserve the North's way of life and his status as a dictator to gain acceptance amongst the international community, and rear in money to help bolster the state's weak economy. Machiavelli uses fear tactics like a lion to get what he wants. North Korea has managed to prevent the erosion of its isolated society and military conquest because of one simple principle. A threat from a mentally unstable person is taken much more seriously than a threat from someone that is calm and calculating. By putting on this facade of being a madman, he is able to deceive the rest of the world. Every decision that he makes is to capture.
Next, he follows parsimony. You can't hate him for that, can you? A ruler must above all guard against being despised and hated, and being generous will lead to both. Therefore, it is shrewder to cultivate a reputation for meanness, which will lead to entirety but not to hatred. This is better than being forced, through wanting to be considered generous, to incur a reputation for rapacity, which will lead to notoriety and to hatred as well.
This quote in Machiavelli's Liberality and Parsimony, chapter 16, Machiavelli is basically stating that a good ruler should not be generous towards the people, as that will ultimately lead them to be despised by the people. This is because once the ruler exerts all their money to the people, they'll be forced to take more from the people in terms of taxes. In the end, it's an endless cycle of giving and taking that will not gain the ruler any favor. Machiavelli states that a good ruler should find a balance between the act of giving and taking, and they should never give what belongs to them to others, but they should give the people what belongs to themselves.
Kim Jong-un follows this rule perfectly. He found a great balance between how strict he should be and generous. He spends around a third of North Korea's national income on the military so that they are well-fed and happy, while he is strict with the rest of the national income, which is directly mainly towards himself. While this does lead to some notoriety, Kim Jong-un does not feel the need to increase taxes on his people now, since he has kept so much money to himself. This prevents his people from becoming greedy for more while also creating a line between the one in power and those under this power.
Kim Jong-un importantly uses his own arms. I say then that the arms with which a ruler defends the state are his own, for they are mercenaries or auxiliaries, or a mixture of all three. Mercenaries and auxiliaries are useless and dangerous, and anyone who relies upon mercenaries to defend his territories will never have a stable or secure rule, for they are disunited, ambitious, undisciplined, and treacherous. They are powerful when among those who are not hostile, but weak and cowardly when confronted by determined enemies.
The quote that Alex just read argues that a leader should rely only on their own army as opposed to mercenary or auxiliary units, since if your own citizens are used, they are willing to die for you and will support you no matter what. Hiring soldiers and using another country's soldiers has a downside of not having a true united support for your cause. They are more willing to flee and escape death rather than sacrifice themselves for you.
North Korea, led by Kim Jong-un, has the second largest military organization in the world, with 30.4% of the North Korean population actively serving in reserve or paramilitary capacity. Kim Jong-un's love from his masses also increases the likelihood that his people will die for the country and for him no matter what he tells them to do. Plain and simple, fear works. Overall, Kim perfectly matches the Machiavellian prince character. We urge for you to vote for him. Thank you.